Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear, yeah, it leads to anger. Anger, yeah, it leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. You know who said that? The boy, Yoda. That's right. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. And hate leads to suffering. Man, it is such a good quote. And if you don't think so, you're wrong. Some things are opinions. This is not. This is a fact. That is a bar. Just the end, hate leads to suffering, is so profound. If you don't understand it and you dig into it, if you don't understand that at all and you really looked for the answer, it would blow your mind. Because people who hate suffer more than the people who don't. Because you're hating. Welcome back to another episode of Crash the Party. I'm Rick Drogo. This is episode 9 because I'm really like that. I'm still moving 9 days in a row. And because of that, my consistency, I'm proud to announce that I am officially sponsored by the Crispy Boys themselves, Diet Coke. Not just any regular Diet Coke, but caffeine-free. That's right. I'm officially sponsored, not with money or anything. It's just they're gonna quench my thirst. You already see what's going on. That's the young man, Ben Shapiro. Yesterday, we listened to the Young Turks, and they were spitting. They were going hard. And who were they going hard on? They were going hard on POTUS. DJ POTUS. A.K.A. the Teflon Don. A.K.A. President Donald Trump. Donald Trumpstein. Somebody called him. And they were really going hard on Israel. And, man, they don't like Israel. I said I wanted to find a right-winged podcaster, media outlet, any credible character for us to watch, someone to show me what it's like to live in the right. And I was reminded by my good friend, the big dog, about Ben Shapiro. And I was like, wow, how could I forget? Because from my little bit of knowledge about politics in the past few months, Ben Shapiro is the only one that I personally can remember going hard for Trump. Or at least like going hard for Israel, and it sounded like he was backing up Trump. So, this show right here of his is called Iranian Regime Signs Its Own Death Warrant, ? This was 2 days ago, so it was the day before yesterday. So it's pretty on point with our timeline. I started watching it a little bit. I haven't decided whether or not I should go over these clips before I record or not. I've gone over some of them, and I just think I like what I'm doing when I'm watching it live for the first time. You get a genuine. I don't like coming up with things to say ahead of time. That's the thing. If you ask anybody that knows me, and I'm the freestyle king. Okay, that doesn't mean it's going to be good, but it's going to be me. Okay. you're going to get something genuine. It's called Ernest Goes to Work because I'm earnest and I'm working. And that's what I'd rather do. So, I watched a little bit of it just to see if it was on par with what I'm looking for, and so he's recapping ultimately what I watched. He was recapping what happened with the peace treaty, with the ceasefire, and I liked it. I was like, okay, he's giving us a different side of this. This is what I was looking for real. So, we're going to jump right into it. This episode he's got is 48 minutes long. Excuse me. And I don't think we're going to probably watch all of it. I might. I don't know. It's my show. That's what I like about this. I could watch it if I want. I don't have to. I could watch it if I want. I don't have to. I also thought about freestyling. Yeah, that's right. Because I do that. But I don't want to put off viewers who don't care about that. But at the same time, I want to be me. And this is my show. So I might freestyle on Friday. But more importantly, let's focus on what's going on now. I'm popping off. Today was leg day, so I'm still got that. I was actually really tired. I didn't want to do this. I do have a full-time job. I'm a roofer. That's right. I'm really like that. I'm still here. I'm going to do this. Okay. I'm going to do this. I'm going to blow up, and I'm going to remember everybody. I'm going to take everybody with me. That's right. That's how I am. So let's. I'm just kind of rambling, but I like that. I'm going to. All right, let's watch Ben Shapiro here. We've really not really got a dose of this, I don't think, yet. So I'm looking forward to it. If you're, I don't know how much commentary you're going to get out of me, and that's okay. I think. Yeah, let's check it out. I would love your feedback the way I'm doing the show. Yeah, it's my show and I'm going to do what I want. But at the same time, I'm trying to create something here. And this is all an experiment where I'm at right now. So I'd love feedback, constructive criticism. Talk to me. Talk to me. Don't walk from me. I don't know.
All right, so all hell seems like it's about to break loose again with regards to the Middle East. Why? Well, because you have to review the timeline. Basically, the United States went into a ceasefire with the Iranians, and the idea was 2 weeks to open negotiations and to move toward a solution on nuclear weapons and Iran giving up its nukes, and on ballistic missiles, and on support for terrorist proxies. And it seemed as though there was some pretty significant movement. The president deployed J.D. Vance, as well as Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, to Islamabad, Pakistan. Originally, they came back and they said there was no deal to be made. And then it appeared as though there might be actually some movement because the United States, you'll remember last week, put a blockade on Iran's blockade. So Iran had basically been putting a blockade on goods in the Strait of Hormuz, harassing shipping, preventing oil from exiting the Persian Gulf. Well, the United States, in the aftermath of the failure of the first round of talks, then blockaded Iranian ships coming in and out of the Strait of Hormuz. And this put the Iranian government in significant economic trouble. And that apparently led to back-channel negotiations. And on Friday, it was announced by both the United States government and the Iranian government that the Strait of Hormuz was open. So on Friday, the Iranian foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, he tweeted, quote, "In line with the ceasefire in Lebanon, the passage for all commercial vessels through Strait of Hormuz is declared completely open for the remaining period of ceasefire on the coordinated route as already announced by Ports and Maritime Organization of the Islamic Republic of Iran." Here is a map of Hormuz. You can see the areas here that show where Iran was attempting to exert control. Iran asserted hazardous area, which covered a pretty significant chunk of the Strait of Hormuz. Basically, Iran was using its projective power from an island called Arak Island in order to prevent shipping from moving through. And the idea was that Iran was going to let up on all that. Well, as soon as Araghchi announced this, the president of the United States put out a bunch of statements talking about the movement in the negotiations, saying, essentially, the Strait of Hormuz is now open. The American blockade would remain on Iranian shipping until such time as Iran gave up the ghost on its nuclear program. The president said that that was very close, that Iran would ship its nuclear dust out, making a deal with the United States to end permanently their nuclear program. that they would stop supporting foreign terrorist organizations and all the rest. Well, this led to what appears to be a pretty open split between some of the negotiators and the people actually in charge in Iran, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is essentially the Praetorian Guard for the mullahs. And there have been a lot of rumors about the split. In fact, one of the reasons why the negotiations in Islamabad, led by Vance, didn't succeed, according to Vance and members of the American side of that negotiation, is that the foreign ministry was making promises they couldn't keep. They would go back and the IRGC would then pretend that none of that ever happened. So Araki had put out that statement saying that the Strait of Hormuz was open. And then, according to Iran International, Araki's post was widely criticized by hardliners and their outlets, including the state-run Mer News, which said that Araki's tweet, quote, provided the best opportunity for Trump to go beyond reality, declare himself the winner of the war, and celebrate victory. Mer News said it is clear that ceasefire-related negotiations are not being handled solely by the foreign ministry. And then another news agency, again, any news agency in Iran is basically being run with the approval of the authorities in Iran, namely the IRGC. Tasnim news agency described the post as, quote, a bad and incomplete tweet that created misleading ambiguity about the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. And then another IRGC outlet called Fars News Agency quoted an informed source close to the Supreme National Security Council as saying that Iran considered the continuation of a U.S. naval blockade a violation of the ceasefire and would close the Strait of Hormuz again. And true to form, the IRGC Navy Command then put forward a tweet saying the same thing. They said, quote, a new order has been imposed on the Strait of Hormuz. Civilian vessels are permitted to transit solely through Iran's designated route. Transit of military vessels through the strait remains prohibited. All transits require permission from the IRGC Navy. This transit is in accordance with the agreement for the period of silence on the battlefield and follows the implementation of the Lebanon ceasefire. So Iran, as you'll recall, we discussed this last week, that Israel and Lebanon were kind of at war. I say kind of because Israel was at war with Hezbollah, which is not the Lebanese government. And Iran tried to tie its own ceasefire with the United States into Israel stopping its attacks on Hezbollah in retaliation for Hezbollah firing thousands of rockets into northern Israel. They tried to claim the reason that they had opened the Strait of Hormuz was because Israel had stopped its action in Lebanon, as opposed to the real reason, which is because the United States was blockading all of the oil going in and out of Iran. Okay, but the bottom line is there's pretty openly a split between the IRGC and members of the foreign ministry in Iran. President Trump on Friday was interviewed aboard Air Force One, and he said there would not be any tolls on the Strait of Hormuz. The thing was going to be open.
Sir, in the strait, are there going to be restrictions and tolls managed by Iran for ships and vessels passing through?
No way.
None at all?
Nope.
No restrictions?
Mr. President, you talked to Mr. President.
Restrictions, yeah, there'll be restrictions. You can't do the tolls. No, they're not going to be tolls.
Okay, so he then continued by suggesting that we would get the nuclear dust, that there would be an agreement, or if there wasn't an agreement, then we would go and get it done. Here's the president.
Sir, you said that the U.S. was going to take the nuclear dust from Iran.
Yeah, we didn't
What's
make
the
a deal.
time? What's the timeline on that? How long will that
take? You want me to give you the time and date and everything else?
Is it like you've negotiated
If we
how long that
obviously, I'm not
process
going to
will
give
go
you the
on?
time other than if we sign the agreement, then I can give you time somewhere after the signing of the agreement.
And
We'll
will
go
it
in
involve
with
US
Iran.
military?
We'll go in with Iran and we
That was
will
funny.
take it together and we will bring it back, 100% of it, back to the United States. If we don't do that, we will get it in a different form, in a much more unfriendly form.
And that
But in any event,
that
we'll get it.
unfriendly
But in
form,
any
would that
event,
involve war?
excuse me, but in any event, we'll get it.
Okay, so he had also put out a series of claims about the nuclear deal moving forward and the United States ending the nuclear program and all the rest. So Mohammad Khalibaf was the Speaker of the Parliament in Iran.
Okay, first of all, I want to say that there is a clear difference in the way Ben is telling this story in the way we've seen this story told in the past few episodes or in the news lately. Ben is saying that our blockade supposedly put Iran, it created so much economic pressure. Okay, that was one reason why they couldn't come to terms with us, why they couldn't sign a deal. He said that the negotiators were making promises that they couldn't keep. Basically, that there's the negotiators in Iran, and then there was the decision makers, and the negotiators which I don't know why those are different people. The negotiators and the decision makers are not on the same page. So the decision makers didn't like what the negotiators said they could do because ultimately they felt like Trump could now declare victory. When the Young Turks, they were really talking about Israel. I mean, they were saying Israel was making us go back to war. You're going to put that blockade up because you're not done going to war. That's the gist of what he said, Cenk. Which I'm not saying anybody's wrong here, either of these guys. I'm talking about two. So, first of all, Ben hasn't brought up Israel except for he's talked about how they were, attacked Lebanon, but they didn't really attack Lebanon. They attacked the Hezbollah. I thought that was a little guy. No, it's different. Which the Young Turks did talk about that, but they were saying Israel straight up attacking Lebanon because they're taking the land. Two big, different stories being told here. Ben's definitely makes us look better because it doesn't have anything to do with us siding with Israel. And he hasn't painted Israel in a bad light at all yet, or at all. So I don't know where that's going to go. And Trump he's funny, dude. Watching him talk to people is I've seen people talk to their kids that way, and I don't even agree with that, There's a way that you can do it with respect. But whatever. I mean, that's what people loved about him at first, was that off the cuff kind of just the way he is, I guess. And it's funny for sure. But it was funny at first. Now it's a little tasteless, in my opinion. Because if that was my wife, he's talking down to like that, like she's a kid, I wouldn't like that. There's a way if somebody was cutting you off on accident or whatever it was, or on purpose, if I'm the president, I want to be so distinguished that I can assert myself in a very respectful way, especially, in front of everybody. It's one thing if you're behind closed doors with your cabinet and people, pressures are rising and these are your bros and you guys are talking about this and that. But on camera, out in front of, strangers, media. Anyway.
Again, appointed by the mullahs and a former member of the IRGC himself, then put out 2 tweets on Friday claiming that nothing Trump was saying was the Speaker of the Parliament in Iran. Again, appointed by the mullahs and a former member of the IRGC himself, then put out 2 tweets on Friday claiming that nothing Trump was saying was true. He said, quote, "The President of the United States made 7 claims in 1 hour, all 7 of which were false. They did not win the war with these lies. They will certainly not get anywhere in negotiations either. With the continuation of the blockade, the Strait of Hormuz will not remain open. Passage through the strait will be conducted based on the designated route with Iranian authorization. Whether the strait is open or closed and the regulations governing it will be determined by the field, not by social media." And he said, "Media warfare and engineering public opinion are an important part of the war. The Iranian nation is not affected by these tricks." Khalibaf would later tweet that the true heroism was martyrdom on behalf of the Iranian Republic, the Islamic Republic of Iran. So clearly, people were clubbed back into place at the very, very, very least. Now, let's be clear. Iran is still targeting civilians. On Saturday, things got heated again. They got heated because the Iranian Navy informed ships that Hormuz was shut, and then 2 vessels reported gunfire. According to Reuters, merchant vessels attempting to cross the Strait of Hormuz on Saturday received radio messages from Iran's Navy telling them they were not allowed to pass, while 2 ships reported being hit by gunfire, shipping sources said. The incidents were reported in waters between the Keshem and Larak Islands. The vessels turned back without completing the crossing, the sources said. The captain of a tanker said it had been approached by 2 Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps gunboats that fired on the vessel. The tanker and its crew were safe. Some vessels reported that Iran's Navy had been broadcasting a VHF message saying the Strait of Hormuz was closed again. Apparently, the radio message said, "Attention all ships. Regarding the failure of the U.S. government to fulfill its commitment in the negotiation, Iran declares the Strait of Hormuz completely closed again. No vessel of any type or nationality is allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz." And again, they were sending that radio signal out. Well, on Sunday, the president got up early, and he immediately started putting out notices. So he began by pointing out that the United States would, in fact, be taking cargo ships that were Iranian flagged, and that had already happened. Quote, "Today, an Iranian flagged cargo ship named Touska, nearly 900 feet long and weighing almost as much as an aircraft carrier, tried to get past our naval blockade. It did not go well for them. The U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer USS Spruance intercepted the Touska in the Gulf of Oman and gave them fair warning to stop. The Iranian crew refused to listen, so our Navy ship stopped them right in their tracks by blowing a hole in the engine room. Right now, U.S. Marines have custody of the vessel. The Touska is under U.S. Treasury sanctions because of their prior history of illegal activity. We have full custody of the ship, and we are seeing what's on board." President Trump. And here is some CENTCOM footage of the rounds that were fired at the Touska.
Motor vessel Touska, vacate your engine room. Vacate your engine room. We're prepared to subject you to disabling fire.
And of course, all of this is in retaliation for Iran, again, attempting to shut the Straits of Hormuz. In just a moment, we'll get to President Trump announcing that the Iranians had violated the ceasefire. First, let's just be honest for a second. Paying $70, $80, $90 a month for wireless, bad idea. It doesn't make any sense. It's bloated pricing from company feed data for just 30. Limited plan used to start at you, not less. Has now is one of the big guys. Totally fair. A better option. Actually picked it high pitch to pure. Iran decided to fire bullets yesterday in the Strait of Hormuz, a total violation of our ceasefire agreement. Many of them were aimed at a French ship and a freighter from the United Kingdom. That wasn't nice, was it? My representatives are going to Islamabad, Pakistan. They will be there tomorrow evening for negotiations. Iran recently announced they were closing the strait, which is strange because our blockade has already closed it. They're helping us without knowing, and they are the ones that lose with the closed passage $500 million a day. He's right about this, by the way, again, as we've discussed. It is true that Iran can harm China by preventing shipping from coming out. It's true they can harm Saudi Arabia, they can harm Iraq, they can harm any of the countries that are shipping oil via the Persian Gulf, UAE, Bahrain, all the rest. But is the United States the party hardest hit by what's going on in the Strait? Not even remotely. And when the United States blockades Iranian ships, it's significantly worse for Iran. The reality is that the United States government spends something like $7 trillion a year. We could lose $50 million every single day, and it would not amount to 1/3 of our federal budget. So again, we are a very, very wealthy country. Iran is a very, very not wealthy country. And when Iran, their industries are shut down, their export and import becomes impossible, their economy is basically on its last legs. The president is right. He says, in fact, many ships are headed right now to the U.S., Texas, Louisiana, and Alaska to load up compliments of the IRGC, always wanting to be the tough guy. We're offering a very fair and reasonable deal. I hope they take it, because if they don't, the United States is going to knock out every single power plant and every single bridge in Iran. No more Mr. Nice Guy. They'll come down fast, they'll come down easy, and if they don't take the deal, it will be my honor to do what has to be done, which should have been done to Iran by other presidents for the last 47 years. It's time for the Iran killing machine to end. The UN ambassador, Mike Waltz, was on ABC News on Sunday, and he said, listen, IRGC's command and control is in disarray. They are still in incredibly rough shape.
The Iranian command and control and government is in absolute disarray because of the devastating attacks across its leadership. You're right. You heard the Iranian foreign minister say it's open, and then the IRGC step in and say, no, it's closed. Regardless, it's the blockade, the U.S. Navy, and President Trump who's ultimately deciding what gets in and out.
Now, again, that is true. The Iranian Foreign Affairs spokesperson, a person named Ismail Bakai, then started whining online about the blockade. So apparently it is a blockade and a ceasefire violation for the United States to blockade Iran's ports and coastline. But it's not a violation or a war crime for Iran to do that to everyone in the Persian Gulf. President Trump says he's still sending negotiators to Pakistan. There was some confusion on Sunday about whether J.D. Vance would go or not go. The president had suggested maybe for safety reasons, the vice president would not go. And then later he said he would go. According to Axios, Vice President Vance will lead a U.S. delegation for another round of talks with Iran in Islamabad before the ceasefire is scheduled to end on Tuesday night. The Iranians are lowering expectations and appear suspicious that Trump's talk of a deal could be cover for a U.S. surprise attack. By the way, what's the surprise? Where would the surprise be? The president says over and over, if you don't get a deal, you might be under attack again. All the stuff you have left might be blown away. And the reality is that Iran is actually even more vulnerable in many ways than they were before the ceasefire. For one example, Iran has been digging out an enormous number.
Okay. Well, we already know what happens because Trump has officially extended the ceasefire. J.D. Vance, Vice President J.D. Vance, did not go because because Iran said they're not coming. They said we're not coming to talk. So Trump, for whatever reason, decided to extend the ceasefire, which is good. That's what I want because I don't want war. I want them to figure this out. So I've heard people say that Trump is looking for any way to get out of it now because he got us in this mess, supposedly. Excuse me. Diet Coke kind of makes me burp. And they're saying that he's just going to take this, as an excuse to try to get out of it. I don't know. This is my problem. This is really a great example. This almost isn't helping me. This is just putting my issue on display. I believe what Ben is saying. I believe what David Pakman said. I believe what the Turks said. I believe what Tucker Carlson says. I believe what Candace Owens says. They all sound so convincing. And I like all of them. I like listening to them to an extent. How am I supposed to know who's telling the truth? How do they know? We got to get to the bottom of this. We're going to do it together, though. And hopefully we don't go to war. I want peace in the Middle East and in the West. I want it all over. And if I can help spread it, I'm gonna. Maybe I need to be president. I don't know if I could handle it. No, not right now. Maybe in a couple years. I think if I do this every day and I continue to listen to the people who speak to me, who send me messages and call me and try to convince me that the other side is dumb, I'll be able to find my compass. But right now, everybody's just telling the truth. So that was good. I enjoyed Ben Shapiro. I enjoyed listening to him. Some people just can't stand somebody with a different opinion. They hate it so much. And that brings us back to what the biggest dog of them all, Yoda, said. Hate leads to suffering. That's why you're miserable, because you're hating. You shouldn't hate people. It's okay to disagree. But when you hate something, I know a lot of people that really hate the president. I know people that hated Obama. Obama and Biden. It's not good. Also, Yoda said, do or do not. There is no try. And that's what I remind myself every day when it's time to do something I don't want to do. Or when I don't know how I'm going to do something. I just got to do it. thank you so much for coming and spending this time with me. We've been doing this for almost 30 minutes, and I'm really loving it. I really love doing this. I feel very fulfilled doing this, along with everything else I do with my family and with my work. God is really doing something special, and I know that. So thank you so much for being a part of it. Hope to see you next time.